I'm live, even though I'm not live yet. I say I'm about to go live. Okay, I'm live. So it's been a fairly quiet Saturday night, you know, within our own group. Raksha finished streaming, I guess about a half an hour ago. And oh yeah, Sarath did a stream earlier tonight. I had a strange time thing with that. I'd been watching it. I even said, was able to say hello and realized I was there, and came back in the room and realized nothing. It seemed like the live chat hadn't moved, so I refreshed it and it said the stream had ended 95 minutes ago. I hadn't even been awake 95 minutes. And then hello, Moose. And then then I checked and it said 41 minutes ago. So between YouTube wonkery and whatever kind of high strangeness that we're going to be experiencing in these very transitional times, I certainly had a good dose of it earlier. I mean, it was surreal. Hello, Vernon. I keep on checking my Skype to see if you're trying to get in touch with me, but every time I check, actually, nobody's trying to get in touch with me, and that's, it is what it is what it is. Yeah, well, a lot of times high strangeness can also be, I would like to think, is part of our Sophia's a novelty, where she goes all novel on our asses, and we're like, what's going on? This is bizarre. This is highly strange. But it certainly gets our attention, and if we really try to get some gnosis around what's going on, we might find her. Thank you, Enjoy Being. Hello, Foxadre. So anyway, it was Saturday night, and I'm, both of Rox and I are sitting around, and so I, we have communication, so I let him know I'm doing a live stream. He goes, I'm going live in 5 minutes. So that was around 9:30 or so, and so I just, I rescheduled the stream for 11 o'clock. Okay, Vernon. Well, as soon as you can. I mean, I check it daily. So if you can, I mean, the reason I want to talk to you is, I mean, I'm now on sabbatical at the One Truth Forum. I might go to retired. That forum has, it's undergoing high strangeness. High. Well, it isn't strange to me. I know how the virus operates, and so I can just what I'm calling high strangeness really looks more like infection. I don't have my digital tempura on. Instead, what you might be hearing in the background is my was it an air cleaner? It's got an ionizer and filters, because now that it's gotten colder, I really don't enjoy smoking out, especially since I have no fuel oil. I'm on the last half of a kerosene heater. The guys brought me 10 gallons of fuel, but all the things are empty. It's kept me it's really made a big difference in my life. Don't think I'm going to be able to replace it when Monday comes and I get up early enough. I'm going to investigate the oil company giving me 100 gallons of fuel oil, because then I can turn my heat on. And if they can do it in the form of a credit card, even though that'll hurt me because I can't, increase monthly payments, are not something that would be welcome at the time. But I'm in the mood. I'm going to at 65 years in age, I have in America, they have a certain thing for people my age, and I really have resisted. Everybody goes, oh, it's coming to you, you take what's coming to you. It's like, I don't want anything from the parasites. I don't care what they took from me. I want them to go away. But instruction, from our mother kind of set me straight. It seemed like I was asking for instruction. Finally, I got some real instruction. So I would say in 2 to 3 months' time, I will no longer have the daily anxiety of like, are we going to do this? I mean, so for the past couple of months, it's been relatively good. Right now, you know, we're at the last 6 days of the month, and there is some anxiety. And if Moose is, you know, of course, lots of people have sent me, I should say a fair amount, you know, some people have sent me help. And it goes to all different things, and according to what it is, you know, and sometimes I'll just say, okay, that piece right there, there's been something, and it was, you know, my amp, I've been playing through my Hughes and Kettner, but I really like to play through my Fender Super Champ. But for me, messing around with speakers and forgetting sometimes to plug in a speaker before turning on the amp, my output transformer is pretty well cooked. It works, but it makes a lot of noise. And one of the reasons it started to go down was because I was trying to run 4 ohms on a very little power supply that could only provide 8 ohms, and that kind of cooked it a little bit. So with Raksha sent me something. I'm just going to show it here. You know, it was one of the more frivolous things I did, but again, it wasn't very costly, and I needed a new output transformer, so I got it. This is my new output transformer that has both 8 and 4 ohms. So when I plug in my amp, I can run through 2 different speakers. Thank you, Raksha. Thank you, Moose. And I definitely, you know, I mean, people have, you know, people out of the blue have been really kind. And of course, generous. Anything is generous. Hello, meandering mystic. So, kind of what inspired me is and I put a link in my description. His name is John Levy, Jonlevi, and he's kind of, you know, he's following the path of a number of people. Philip Druzhinin is another, but this I enjoy the way this guy presents. His average video I'll put as an average time about 15 minutes, and he does a good job, and it really kind of it really lets us know that the civilization we're currently in is really fairly new as far as what we think of as modern life. But one of the things that he was doing, you know, he's been there's a lot of people who are out there kind of who, the interesting thing is many of the people who are providing this, like these resources and looking into these and the old photographs and kind of following up on the work of the New Earth woman, Sylvie Ivanova. No, Conspiracy R Us is another channel, Enjoy Being. So I just found that last night, as a matter of fact. But John Levy, if you put it into YouTube, I actually didn't put a video down in my description. I put his YouTube video page up there, so people could choose. The video I did post was a video by Max Egan. And Max Egan has been providing solutions for the corrupt power structure of this planet or this earth for years now, and he's very right on. But the past couple of months he's been occasionally drifting into the false history, and his last one is a very good one. And in the middle of the program he kind of he goes a little bit back into the modern time and dealing with power structures, and then he kind of concludes going back into the false history, and there's, you know, mud floods. But the interesting thing about many of the people, like Philip Druzhinin, who puts out some good stuff, and this guy John Levy, they all seem, from what I can tell, hold to the concept of flat Earth. But again, in both of these, although it comes into their language, that's not their issue. Their issue is the fuckery that has happened in the last 150 and 200 years. And so I have no issue with somebody who from what their perceptions are telling them, that the Earth is flat. especially if it's people like this who it isn't, the shape of the earth isn't the issue. What has happened on the earth, the fuckery on the earth, is what they're addressing. And this is the common ground for all of us to join together. We are being assailed and have been assailed for some hundreds of years. I'm talking about an attack. I'm not talking about, I mean, there are waves of this, but the current wave of attack, and we see some of that attack in wildfires. I'm not going to pursue that. But, so I mean, I really feel that if we start focusing on the ones, the usually unnamed ones, who are attacking us all, perhaps we can all stop attacking each other. Because this flat earth, round earth thing is not worthy of our time. If you think it's flat, you live on a flat earth. If you think it's round, you live on a round earth. But we're both perceiving the same fucking problems. Yeah, the mud flood, mud flood, it looks like something happened. But Max put forward to me, a good idea. Like, it was like, what if it was some kind of tectonic, something that could affect the tectonics, or blanket an area in a certain sonic bathing that would cause kind of emotion. Because people that, and Max was speaking about it, during an earthquake, sometimes the motion creates what normally seems like solid earth to turn into something like quicksand. And so with some of this stuff, I mean, the same thing that looks like a mud flood could also be subsidence. In other words, where the ground liquefies for a short period of time and buildings sink 6 feet, 8 feet, 10 feet or so. I mean, to me, to address Moose here, if we want to consider ourselves a mature community, okay? I mean, we're a community, but if we want to be a mature community, we have to focus on what is truly assailing us as common human animals on the planet. And there is plenty to focus on, and to me, anybody providing some insight into these things should be looked at as data, and not running off with full hypotheses on a little bit of data here and a little bit of data there. So I mean, for me, the maturity of the community is the ability to work together, and the focus of that work together starts when we begin working together. We don't like set up a topic and we're all going to work on this. No, we start approaching each other with the idea of we're being attacked. Now this Monday, when I do my telestic transmission, I will be focusing very much on the Thunderbird formation of the Calico War Party. Because in the Thunder formation, I did cover it once, but I really want to get into it because there was great inspiration with the Dakinis and the different directions and the different subgroupings within the assailed group, that we can, that kind of, correspond to our true selves. And so, the Calico War Party, war, and we are at war. War has been declared. Make no mistake that a war has been declared upon us. And we can either be victims or we can respond like an immune system. Because the billions that we represent is the body. The attack is an infection, and any infection could kill somebody if the body does not mount an immune response. The Calico War Party is one man's immune response concept. there, you know, one of the things that Sylvie points out, and now everybody else is pointing out, and you'll see a lot of it with John Levy's YouTube channel, is that no matter where you go on this planet, any place that is, you know, that has had any kind of, you know, like major city, all the architecture is almost identical of the municipal buildings. When you look across this whole earth and you look at what municipal buildings look like, the town halls or the courthouses, whatever, they are almost all of the same architecture. This speaks of a culture and another civilization. So the civilization we are currently in is only a couple hundred years old. I mean, it's, you know, it's all these different things have derivatives, but the so-called Greco-Roman style, and I mean, when you go into these cities where they haven't replaced some of the oldest statues, you don't see saints and everything else. You see, you know, depictions of, for you know, like almost Greco-Roman deities. They were obviously very not Abrahamic. And there was clearly a culture that was worldwide and built in the same style and was around as little as 200 years ago. I mean, if you have not just delved into the work of New Earth, you're missing a lot. To me, there are a few more subjects that there are some YouTube channels that are pointing out to this assault and this 100-year assault and how we got here, and there is no applicability to UFOs in this conversation. So anybody who finds himself attracted to the UFOs and stuff like this, you're going to be losing huge amount of time researching that stuff. I remember some months ago I was researching the tunnels that bring water from upstate New York into the city. And it's not that far upstate. It's like about 90 miles upstate from New York City. And I was just saying, you know what? These feats seem very much like the ones that we see in what we're calling ancient times, and that's why the timeline has been played with so much, to make it seem like it's always been like this, rather than it's only been a couple of hundred years. As far as what we're seeing, and like, you know, this wasn't like some kind of progression. This was an insertion. This was a conquest. So anyway, yeah, so let me get to the topic here then. Are cathedrals cathodes? Now, one of the things I'm looking at, you know, he was showing this guy, John Levy, or Levi, however, was shown, you know, Sylvie has done it also, but any number of people have shown all these different armatures, and we all know the look of the cathedrals, with all the spires, very often cupolas, usually some kind of antenna-looking thing, that are very similar, and they're not, and more often than not, and especially with the older cathedrals, they're not crosses. When we look at some of the artwork of the cathedrals, we'll see some Christian statuary, which often, compared to it's in like a little bit of a niche somewhere. And if you look at the wall around the statue, the wall looks like it's hundreds of years older. In other words, the statues that have been placed are relatively new. The ones that are kind of religious iconography. So, and I even remember at one thing they were showing this basically, when you look at a battery, okay, you have a positive and a negative, which can be kind of confusing in electricity. But basically, electricity is the flow of electrons. So in one case, you kind of have to have some electrons to accumulate. And then by putting a charge, because don't forget electrons are negative charge. So if one puts a positive charge they will attract it. So basically all you have to do is create a differential between your charges where one side has more electrons than the other, and then the natural Tao of homeostasis means too many electrons here, not enough here, positrons here, so let's balance it, and you create a flow. Because if you have a high pressure and a low pressure system, the high will go into the low will feed into the high until there's some kind of balance going. Balance is the Tao, is the way. The way of the pleroma, the way of the cosmos, the way of the earth, the way of our mother. And so I'm sitting here and I'm looking at these cathedrals that basically seem to be huge electron gatherers to then be able to be used externally. And there's some, I'm starting to learn a little bit about windows and frequencies, but that's getting beyond what my ability to understand is. But here's what I'll give you the language. The side that builds the electrons, and even with a tube, whenever, the side that builds the electrons is called a cathode. And then the part that receives the electrons is called an anode. Let's look at cathode, and then look at the beginning of cathedral. If you replace the E with an L, you'll get cathedral. And some vowel transliteration can happen, but what I'm seeing and what I'm getting is that cathedral is either another way of saying cathode or a code. But the construction of these cathedrals was to accumulate electrons that could then be sent out in a Tesla type of way. And apparently these were operational all over Europe. And apparently the same people who stopped Tesla also said, hey, now that we have the technology, we want to sell it. Because if we decommission all of these cathedrals, and the fact that they're putting out some form of current, and these people are already used to current, we should have no trouble selling it, because it's just like, once you get used to something and it goes away and you still have a memory of it, you want it back as soon as you can have it, especially if you enjoyed it. And using electricity is enjoyable in most cases. Yeah, so I am hypothesizing based on what I'm seeing, what these cathedrals do, and I'm looking at the design, you're starting to understand, and I'm also, here I am learning to build amps, so I'm learning a lot about electricity, and I went, shit, cathedral is a cathode when they're hooked up to accumulate electrons. Because that's what a cathode is. A cathode is little more than a hugely electron-rich accumulation, or where electrons would accumulate, and right away, as soon as you can introduce a positive, what they see as positive, they're going to stream to wherever that is, and that's an anode. And once you have a cathode to anode stream, you have an electrical current. The sewers, now I enjoy breeding in New Zealand, San Francisco. The sewer systems of San Francisco, and if I'm not the only one to say that, it was probably actually precipitated by somebody positing it first, but it ties into my New York water tunnels. That the sewer system, which is like the grand systems that we find in Europe that look more like underground, places to have raves than a sewer. San Francisco has those, and San Francisco, America started east and moved west. So when did all of those huge tunnels that make up the San Francisco sewer system, when were they done? In this rapid expansion west, there are just. I even think some of the subway tunnels in New York City might be older than we might imagine. I lived in the Bronx, we had an elevated train system. I mean, it went into Manhattan too, but in the Bronx it was largely elevated, and they would go under because they had to go underground to get into Manhattan very often. And let's go 1 second. I'm making the mistake of looking into the chat when I'm trying to hold, and it's good stuff. It's my own shortcoming here. And so when I looked at the elevated trains, they had, one of the things is the kind of the architecture of building looks almost identical to the Eiffel Tower, which is another, I have to wonder, when you look at the shape of the Eiffel Tower and what it's made of, makes you wonder what was going on there. But when I looked into, okay, there's a dam in upstate New York called Kensico Dam, which is where they kind of collect the above ground water to then send to New York City. And I'm just thinking, man, this is some engineering feat. I have a feeling that those tunnels were already there. And I didn't have time, I even wouldn't know necessarily how to find it, but I was searching about the Kensico Dam and the New York City water tunnels on Wikipedia, because, you know, again, that's where you find out what it is they're willing to tell us. And the thing that kind of confirmed my suspicion or my hypothesis was they showed somebody inspecting one of the water tunnels, but it wasn't freshly built. Actually, it looked like had been unused for a while, and perhaps needed clearing out, because these were kind of natural tunnels, and, you know, and it's not like the whole thing was filled. You know, it was like water ran along the bottom, and if stones fall out of the wall, you would have an interruption of water flow. I think they certainly expanded the water tunnels, but I think there were pre-existing water tunnels that largely needed maintenance, because the civilization that had maintained them had been wiped out. Okay, now that I got that thought out, I can come back in the live chat. Yes, and there's another thing, exactly, Windsor. There's one person who they're mentioning about where these windows are very often. Matter of fact, I didn't finish watching it, but it was something about sound technology or sonic weaponry. But this is all on this guy, Phil. Please check out John Levi's channel. And because, again, the average video is about 15 minutes. And he does a really good job. And he uses photos. And I find the photos very evocative. And he kind of stays out of the way. You know, he wants us to do thinking. So he's kind of careful with how much he posits of his own conclusions. And I find that very refreshing. One of the most fascinating things he showed, because he was trying to tie it in with microwaves, or that there's something to microwaves, and they show some videos, and they're without sound because they're done by very young Russian men. These guys might be in their late teens, early 20s. And what they did was they took out the microwave generator from a microwave oven, but they kept it connected so they could still use everything. He put it on a stick and then tied a tin can as kind of like a focusing device. And when he did that and turned on the microwave, he was able to light the LEDs lit up. Regular incandescent bulbs, if he got it, they would light up, but if he got it too hot, and you could see this plasma. When he got it close, it wasn't like the tungsten filament. Sometimes they let it, actually one case it melted. But as soon as he put it in, you could see like a plasma forming inside the incandescent bulb. But if he left it there too long or got it too close, the bulbs all blew up. He put it on the end of a stick, pointed it at an old cathode tube TV. Within about 10 seconds, the TV blows up. I'm telling people, I mean, there is just so much going on, and we need to ignore the fucking UFOs and all that bullshit. I mean, really now. Enough with the UFOs. And the stories. because to me, too much of that just distracts, like, oh, maybe they're going to help us. No, I think maybe a couple of billion people on this planet acting like we're under attack will be all the help we need. Yeah, well, Eric Dollard's, way out there. But again, Eric Dollard speaks at his level. What I'm enjoying about these videos is these are people asking questions, not necessarily giving answers, where it gets us to think. Dollard is so thorough that it's almost just like intake. And again, he's up there, man. If Dollard acted a little more like Cliff High, I think it'd be a little better. He's an interesting character, Dollard, but he's a genius. He is a genius. I am much more fascinated by the work of Paul Stamets. Because, and actually I wanted to, and I'm bringing him up, because he studies fungi, and he's the one who has shared what the mycorrhizae, like this huge, probably the largest organism on the planet, this underground mycorrhizae, which is a fungus, and it breathes oxygen like us, as opposed to plants where we have this inverse relationship. We exhale their food, they exhale our, we exhale food, actually, carbon, they actually use the carbon dioxide to make their sugars and other, parts of life with the aid of sunlight. But these mycorrhizae, and what he's done, and this is to me a behavior that we can emulate, because it's brilliant behavior, is that as the mycorrhizae expands, it's very often encountering new situations, new possible food sources, identifying adversarial things. As it's expanding, as it encounters these things, as soon as it encounters it, it shares it with the whole organism, and then the organism will develop a solution. As soon as that solution's developed, the whole organism has it. And that's how we, the alternative community, could behave. And that's what I'm trying to do here. I found something, and so now I'm bringing it here to the stream to share. This is the behavior of the mycorrhizae. This is the behavior of a true community, is sharing, not arguing. Now, there's another thing. Obviously, we want to take our ideas and provide and apply a real discernment. We want to kick the doors and to kick the tires on our ideas, especially our own ideas. I mean, for me, very often we're always assailing other people's ideas. The whole reason for us to present our ideas is so other people can have a look at it and maybe say, oh, what about this? And then again, if you have your own, and you consider the source, some people will come up with questions and you're like, eh. But even then, even if it seems like a goofy question, make sure it's a goofy question and not one that just seems goofy. And you take a look at it and you go, oh, wait a second. Ooh, maybe that was just a little uncomfortable for me and I was calling it goofy, or it didn't work for the hypothesis I've grown emotionally attached to, and so therefore I'll call it goofy. So it is really for us to have the true power in many ways as an organized, a societal animal, an organized animal. We have to have the behaviors, and that's why those who are not part of the human animal, who have an anti-human agenda, do everything to drop little idea bombs to create arguments amongst people, because this way here it turns us into adversaries of each other, so we do not turn as one multi-billion organism towards the pathogens. It's a distraction. Even a lot of the quote-unquote false flags, at one level they'll serve, real people die, but again, to me, what a false flag is, something happens and the attacker is wrongly identified. Kind of like the Gulf of Tonkin incident. You know, oh, the North Vietnamese did it, but then we find out somebody else did it. That's what false flag means, where the blame or the cause of something is falsely attributed. It isn't about if anybody died or not. That's not what a false flag means. That's what the flag is for. The flag is the identifier. Who did it? So, and then but there is, there is the shock and horror of a false flag, real or imagined. If if you hear a story of multiple people dying and, you're going to be traumatized. That's going to put you, you're not going to go like, oh yeah, if you're traumatized, you don't like, okay, what's the next thing, what was the next thing on my to-do list? No, you have to kind of, readjust from that. But I really feel a lot of these false flags, especially domestic ones, the ones that don't really start wars, are a distraction. In other words, let's take, what happened at Las Vegas last year. While that was happening, I wonder what else was happening in Las Vegas. In other words, while all eyes were on the horror, what else was going on? Because more and more it's really seeming like the various idea storms and idea fires that are the common, the basic citizen is subjected to, is often to have them all focus at the horror while some fuckery is going on elsewhere. By the way, let me take time out and greet everybody who's here. I've already said hello to Raksha and Vernon and Oswald and Fox and Dre, and enjoyed being in. So now I have to catch up to, well, I said hello to me and hello Windsor, thank you for being here. Warm greetings, Forrest Little, and Kayashira Wilder, or Kayashira Wilder. And if anybody wants any, I don't have any music going. Well, CW just went live, so if he's playing, and it's one of his, ambient music things. So maybe putting on CW making music might complement this very well. I like the idea that if he's making music and I'm speaking, that we could put them together. I like that a lot. And once again, as I said in the beginning, a Moose had scheduled something. We had, it kind of like I hadn't. It came up my subscriptions. I had refreshed my subscriptions before I did it, but he hadn't put it up yet. So then I'm informing him, I'm going to be doing this, and he's going, well, I'm going live in 5 minutes. So that's when I rescheduled this. Good, Windsor. Like I said, I mean, for me, if one of us is talking and one of us is making music, that sounds like a perfect opportunity to partake. And also, if you're, people see that you're viewing, that's always pleasant. So this way here, both of us can have views without even stepping on each other. In many ways, not even stepping, it can be very complimentary. Good, thank you, Oswald. And of course, it is, one of the things that we tried to do with, the crew, the crowd, the circuit, the kind of alternative community that, in many ways, I mean, if we count subscribers amongst the smaller ones, the gorilla in the room, the 800-pound gorilla, and a complimentary, it's not a slur, is CW, or Ben. And then then you start, getting into the dark journalists, I guess I have to mention Leak Project, although I usually don't. I usually don't promote comedy shows, although some of his guests are really good. The reason we're getting so many fungal infections is because our immune systems are so seriously compromised. And there's also a lot of the junk that we put in our bodies I mean, even our bodies can't use some of the junk. And so the bacteria, the pathogens, who actually, the average quote unquote negative bacteria is basically a shit eater. If we don't have shit in our bodies, there's nothing to eat, and you don't end up not having any, and you end up, not having any people and any pathogens inhabiting the body. It's one of the reasons why fasting is so good. It's one of the reasons why being thin, within reason. I don't mean, I just mean like, minimal body fat. Because what our bodies store much of the garbage that it doesn't process, it stores it in the fat. So if we have excess adipose tissue, another word for fat, and not a very clean diet, then that adipose tissue gets really garbagey. And the next thing and we always have pathogens going through our system, but the pathogen goes, get me out of here, put me in the toilet bowl as soon as possible, at least there's some food there. Get me out of this body, there's no food, I'm starving. But if the same pathogen goes through a body that's full of garbage, it's like, hey, it's time to breed. And that's really what, I mean, the big argument that Pasteur had in his time, and Pasteur apparently supposedly recanted on his deathbed, was he was saying, his theory was that germs were responsible for diseases, but all of the physicians at the time said, no, it's not the germs. It's whether or not they find an environment they can thrive in. I mean, it's like fish. Pull fish out of the water, they don't last very long. They need an environment to thrive in. And every single species on this planet needs a food system. It needs an energy intake. So if we don't, so again, the interesting thing is the good bacteria will proliferate when in what is wholesome, and the bad bacteria, what we call bad. I mean, again, what is really bad in our body, if you have a cesspool and you don't want to be calling somebody to pump it all the time, you want a cesspool full of bacteria. It's just waiting for that next flush, just waiting for it. And so that's really the case. To me, there really are no good or bad bacteria. They're all bacteria, but it's the environment. The bacteria that don't do us harm, we call good. The bacteria we call bad, if they get in our body and can even kill us, we call bad. But those same bacteria in the wild where they belong, isolated where they belong, without them, we would be living in shit. Well, I still buy only organic fruit, and organic used to be a lot better, but it is still superior to everything else, and it has flavor, and it smells. You pick up an organic tomato, it smells like an organic tomato. So I'm not going to use the word organic. When I say anything, the word organic is in front of it, because there's no. So if you pick up any organic, and that's kind of how I check it. If I pick up the fruit or produce I'm going to buy and it doesn't smell like it, I don't want it. Where I do go and I will check the regular produce that's not organic, and more often than not, when I pick it up, I can't smell it. So, and I have occasionally bought produce because it was a really good price. I picked it up and I smelled it, and I realized this is probably from a new orchard or something, where it has been, the soil hasn't been depleted, so it can still put it out. And that's what I'm really looking. I'm not looking to pay extra for organic, but I'm willing to pay extra for the flavor, the vitamins, and the minerals. Depends on the form of agricultural, harebrain. I mean, we are meant to work with nature. We've done amazing things taking her basic idea, and then we kind of introduce other things and produce amazing things. It is natural for us to play with a creation. That's why this creative spirit was within us, so we can play. And agriculture, when I'm talking about agriculture, I'm not talking about necessarily where it's all, where you're just farming the land. Agriculture, again, there's no good or bad. It's like the bacteria. It's the application, where it is, and also whether or not a certain lifestyle makes a normally wild species more domesticated. So I think that behind agriculture was one of the great domesticating tools of human animal. I mean, I'm very aware that the avocados that we all like, those big fleshy things, have no relation to what avocados used to look like. So anything, anyway, so cathedrals as cathodes. And so my Saturday night potpourri, I always want to hold out the ability. I might pick up my guitar and play something. I got those who chose to give me feedback about the last stream I did, and I played a few songs. Oh yeah, bananas too, for sure. I mean, I think most modern fruit is we have created it into our palate liking. But to me, that's part of what we're doing. It's almost like, hey, this is the best we can manage from the creation side. Now by putting the creative spirit into actual beings, then another finer detail can be brought, and it can also be brought where that really bringing out what we would really like to see from what occurred naturally. We do it so that it serves us. I do think that the current modern sugar addiction is pathological. Pathological. I mean, like when I make my carrot juice, even if I'm putting in my kale and my broccoli stems, if I have 500 mils, or let's say a pint of the juice that comes out of the juicer, I put in an equal amount of water. Now, for some people who like carrots because of how sweet they are, and organic carrots are far sweeter than regular carrots, they might go, oh, but it's not sweet enough. I'm not looking for sweet. I like a little sweet in there. I put some honey in different things. I have a pound or something of raw turbinado organic sugar that I moved here with from New York in 2015, and most of it is still there. When I sweeten, I usually use maple syrup or honey. They're just more complex. They're closer to food, and honey is really, really special food. So, oh yeah, so I got good feedback from the people who chose to give feedback for my music. It's been good, was very good. And part of what it is, I enjoy the feedback. It's fun for me. And yeah, finding real honey is tricky, but I love the raw honey. I got a couple places, and it's thick and creamy. You kind of have to stir it. It's almost like the old-fashioned milk where the cream was on the top, and you can see like little bees' knees and things like that in it. I call them bee's knees. And you can taste, it has a slightly waxy taste because it has been overly processed. Some of the natural honeycomb wax is in the honey itself. So yeah, raw honey, completely different thing than most of the regular honeys. And you'd be surprised when you think, I mean, to me the only, here we go. To me, the only candy that can even hold its own with fruit, largely because it's made from another kind of fruit of sorts, is chocolate. But the chocolate I eat organic chocolate, and the one that I've been getting, because it's pretty good price, green and black's organic, and it's 88% dark chocolate. And the other thing I like about the dark chocolates is there's very little sugar in them. They're bitter. They're more bitter than sweet. And there's a, you know, well-made chocolate is drug-like. When I was in massage school and we were learning about what sugar does to the body, never mind the taxing of the pancreas to produce insulin to metabolize it, but we learned that sugar, you know, your basic sucrose, breaks down protein. And somebody decided to do a real-time experiment that day. We didn't even need to wait for another day. It happened in a few hours. They sprinkled some sugar on a slice of cheese. Within a few hours, the cheese had a dent in it where the sugar had dissolved the protein. Didn't need it. Sugar doesn't need it. It's not an organism. Just dissolved it. And so that's what sugar will do to a body. It starts dissolving your tissues, and one of the crucial tissues of our body is the fascia and the cartilages, and that stringy connective tissue. Although some fascia is more like mucus than anything else. And matter of fact, the Unfuckers did a thing, and they were referring to, as if it was newly discovered, interstitial tissue, which is another word for fascia, and or tissue that's in the interstitium. And they, you know, again, it's kind of like old news. It came up because I learned about fascia in 2008. But it has, you know, it's relatively cutting edge understanding of the body. But the amount of sugars that people consume, they're dissolving themselves. It also creates a high acidic content in the body. It makes the bloodstream acidic. Bloodstream wants to be at least base, likes to be a little bit alkaline. And so what happens, especially in an increasingly sedentary lifestyle, where we're not telling our bones that we need them to hold on to the calcium, because the body is dynamic. So even if you were like, you know, have screamingly high, if you have extremely low pH, like you're very acidic, but you work out a lot, the last place that your body will try and use calcium as a buffering agent to bring the pH up, the last place it'll look is your bones. But if you have a high sugar diet and you're not active, and you're, as far as your bones only perceive the need to be strong enough to get out of a chair and out of bed, they will, as we have these acidic bloodstreams, it will constantly leach the calcium from your bones to deposit in your bloodstream to neutralize the acid and try and bring up the pH of our blood. So that leads to osteoporosis, which is why there is an osteoporotic epidemic in America or any Western society. So we have to, we have to realize our bodies are dynamic, and that what we put in our mouth plays into the weather. And the fact that McDonald's can stay open is a testament to how much we hate ourselves. McDonald's being able to be a business is a form of self-hate. It is such bad food. I've been a vegetarian for almost 30 years, and it's when my health started to improve and it stayed improved. I'm O positive, and of course, but the woman. Funny thing, they have blood types in meat, and the woman who originally said, "Oh, O positive needs to eat the most meat," she a couple of years later, after she wrote a book, she recanted that and said, "No, that's not good science. That's bad science." If I eat any flesh, I eat salmon. And, obviously wild salmon. And part of that is because if I'm going to eat an animal, I want to take in the spirit of the animal. So first of all, it's a dynamic fish. And also in Celtic lore, the salmon, if you had an animal card and it had salmon, the key word would be wisdom. So if I'm going to eat an animal, I'm going to eat it as a totem. So I'm eating the dynamism and wisdom associated with salmon. And if I don't know if I've had salmon 10 times in a year. And it has nothing to do with the cost. It's weird for me to eat flesh, even when I'm eating it totemistically. And I used to get yearly colds, sometimes 2 a year, and I figured that seemed normal. And it wasn't until about 2 or 3 years after I went vegetarian, I haven't had a cold in 3 winters. And then I realized that what I'd originally begun as kind of an energetic, and we call it slightly spiritual, reason for why I changed my diet, plus also scientific. I had read enough to go, let me experiment with this. Okay, like in words, you have this group says this group says this. Okay, well, I've been following this group, and if thinking I was healthy, so I said, let me try this group, and again, so then it turned into gnosis. It's not like somebody told me something and I'm parroting it. No, I used my own body as a test subject, and all I can say is vegetarian, being an educated vegetarian. Because again, I know nutrition. So when I made the change, it wasn't very difficult for me to know what I needed to get into to maintain my health. No comment, Foxadre. Hope you enjoyed it, most importantly. I will say that the 2 meats that I cut out first were pork and veal. To me, veal is a fucking crime. I mean, really, just everything about it is heartbreaking. And I have theories on each of the animals, but I'll spare. I'm quite sure the majority of the people are still carnivores. And I'm not in the mood for really insulting anybody. At least not making an effort. If it happens in the course of me trying to be reasonable, so it is. And of course, if anybody's ever listened to Gordon White and some of his theories about how humanity got here, it does include pig. But it's a theory. But he doesn't share. It's not one that he has all by himself. Well, hope you. Please excuse me while I go refill my water. I forgot that little prep. And thank you for bearing with me. Now, I guess I should just, being as I'm getting to the end of the month, and starting to have some anxiety attacks, I'll just mention that at the very top of my description is a PayPal, my PayPal address. If anybody, has the desire and wherewithal to assist me here at the end of at the rapidly approaching end of the month, my eternal thanks. Anyway, so back to concepts. Kind of came to me when I was out there, and just everybody, oh look, everybody's really still likes their meat, and I'm like going, hey, I like to pay my rent. But that, like I said, I'm doing things that within 2 to 3 months as a maximum. Could be even sooner, but I will, in a very adult fashion, get my finances properly situated, and I can take all, I can leave the link up, and because again, to me, I'm working, and if anybody likes to tip me, tips are always appreciated. As a musician and massage therapist, tips have always been part of my life. Yeah, so the music, and I got one compliment from a musician who was just saying about how good the sound was. And I am a tone hound, which is one of the reasons why when I do Mystic Muses based on music, I'm always promoting Weber speakers, because that's the last piece of equipment that of our sound chain. It starts with our fingers, guitar, pickup, the guitar chord, into the amp, the processing, sent to the speaker, and then it comes out. So and the other thing is, Weber speakers, besides having such great tone, are very articulate. They don't hide anything. So when you can hear everything you're making, the good, the bad, and the ugly, you can improve the good and work on the ugly. And a lot of modern speakers just don't have the detail. They're not articulate enough. And I think sometimes when people go from, like a Celestion or an Eminence or a Warehouse guitar speaker, one of those, and they all make good speakers. Weber makes great speakers, and each speaker is made handmade. And there is, other than their signature speakers, which are the ones that they kind of, make and then sell. They don't do it per order. But even there, very often there's at least, you can get a 4 ohm or an 8 ohm. But for the people who think I have good tone, part of it is my ear, it's my fingers, but it's the fact that I use equipment that allows me to get the tone I would like people to hear. So I don't know, maybe I'll kind of bring this one to a close without playing, because I see I'm losing viewers, which probably means I'm getting boring. And sometimes it's time, when somebody's boring, it's just time to go say good night. But so, because the big thing is, I wanted people to kind of know about John Levy, and again, enjoy what's going there, maybe perhaps stir something. I don't remember what year it was, I'm changing subject to, but I had Lyme disease that was brutal, and I never took an antibiotic. And it hangs on. There's chronic fatigue for, like, even for some years later, but I was able to hold on to my health, because without taking the antibiotics, I was able to deal with that without destroying all my good bacteria and getting all the other illnesses that go when you take it. I mean, when you take antibiotics, you get the thing that is really causing you quite a bit of distress. I understand it, but unfortunately, usually after any, big, strong dose of antibiotics, you have a bunch of illnesses you're going to get from what the antibiotics wiped out of our systems. That's something that many people can say, Kayashira, and that's, I applaud that. I mean, I'm into holism with a W, so I consider the whole, not holism with an H, which has holes in its concept. I've never had a flu shot in my life. You know what it is? I mean, again, I grew up very scientific. I grew up, taking academic courses. So, and one of the first things you learn is that there is nothing, viruses come and go, and the only way to really have immunity is to get the virus. Flu shot always sounded terrible to me. I've never had a flu shot. It's not even like, oh, should I? The idea of taking a flu shot is like, this makes me want to scream and run. I mean, I've had flus, it's part of life. Yeah, oh my God, I don't remember the last time I took an antibiotic. I really cannot. I mean, I had all my teeth pulled owing to alcoholism and other drug intake. Actually, if I had known now what I know then, I could have saved my teeth, but I didn't know then because I had to get sober to get the knowledge I have now. So I had all my teeth pulled. So of course, they give you the Vicodin because it will hurt. I was glad to take them. And they always gave me a prescription for antibiotics. I never once took an antibiotic, even though I had these huge holes in my mouth. I used warm salt water. I was rigorous with it. If I ate anything, of course, some food will get into the socket. And if that food starts to fester, you'll get an infection. After every single meal, I took salt water, gently irrigated, rinsed out the cavity, the hole from where the teeth were, got the food out, which sometimes you have to do multiple. Basically, I kept on rinsing until there was no particulate in the water itself. And you can feel that with your tongue. And I never had an infection. Never, ever. And I had every single tooth pulled out of my mouth. And I had, a lot of times it was like 2 or 3 here and 2 or 3 here. I mean, I had huge holes in my jaw. And, never had an infection. So that was at 35. That's 30 years ago. And I know I certainly took no antibiotics since then, because shortly after that I got sober, really learned how to take care of our body, my body, our bodies, and have never needed one. Now, external antibiotics, like essential oils, if I have something, I'll use tea tree. If I think there's a real chance of infection, if it's just a cut and I wash it and there's no big deal, I'll just use lavender. Lavender is sufficient. It's bacteriostatic. And mildly antibiotic, but it's more bacteriostatic, which basically means once you put, if you've cleaned it properly, washed away the bacteria, and you put the lavender onto that wound, not only will it heal quicker, but it's bacteriostatic, means that bacteria cannot proliferate. And if bacteria cannot proliferate, you cannot have an infection. Now the beauty of, I do eat, I like to eat my tempeh. I eat tempeh. I will eat tofu, but again, the tofu is minimal. I like tempeh. I like the texture of tempeh, especially the 3 grain. The pure soy tempeh, I don't really even like the flavor of it. But the one I get is soy, corn, and millet. Very tasty. 3 grain, as they call it. But, because I don't take antibiotics, because I don't eat meat, I don't really feel the need, I don't need to take a lot in the way. I happen to like yogurt. I have one canister. I don't eat it all that often, but there was a period I was eating yogurt every night with maple syrup. Whole milk, plain yogurt with maple syrup. Oh, is that delicious. And of course that'll replenish it. But you know, if you have a colony of gut, if you have gut bacteria and you don't kill them, they maintain themselves. It's like a forest. In many ways, gut bacteria is like a lawn that grows on the inside of your large intestine, and they're just waiting. Like, you know, each time something goes through there, it's food for them. And as long as you do not destroy the population in your gut, you don't need to keep on replenishing it. They keep on breeding. The only time you really need to replenish it is if you either lose them completely or you've cut down the population so much that the repopulation to a healthy level could take longer, in which case you can supplement with probiotics. You know, Windsor, again, the thing is, soy is so, I mean, you know, every meme that runs around, and also, again, I'm a you know, as somebody who can think scientifically, there is no like our own estrogen in these things. They have phytoestrogens. Phytoestrogens are different than the estrogen that we use in our bodies. Basically, phytoestrogen has some extra things. And part of that is, if you eat phytoestrogens, even in huge amounts, and you don't need estrogen, the body will not remove this thing that kind of breaks it down and makes it bioavailable. Phytoestrogens are bioavailable if the body wants them and needs them. But if the body doesn't need estrogen, is producing sufficient amounts of its own, it doesn't strip off these kind of like little extra pieces of the molecule and make it in other words, turn it from phytoestrogen into regular estrogen. The fermented foods also change the chemistry of soy products. So yes, for me, the only two soy products that I will consume are tempeh and tofu, because they're fermented. All of this other stuff that just has soy flour in it, even soy milk's not fermented. That kind of soy apparently isn't, the phytoestrogens aren't as well bound, and they can really play havoc. So it's really, to say no soy is a little bit black and white for me. Again, even, you know, vegetarian, not vegetarian. My thing, if you're not going to pay attention to nutrition, please don't become a vegetarian and give it a bad name. Because people, oh, I tried a vegetarian and I was sick forever. And then you look at their diet, and I'd be sick eating that. I'm a vegetarian for 30 years. If I ate your diet, I would have been sick in weeks. You didn't have enough of this, you didn't have enough of that, you didn't have enough of this. And then, of course, you know, the whole protein. Yes, you do need proteins, but you don't need as much as they tell you. They've increased it. When I was a kid, the adult protein was 30 grams. They've almost doubled it, if they've not doubled it, because it's good for the meat industry, and now it's good for the soy industry. For those who, you know, how would a vegan keep up with the modern, you know, protein requirements without soy? Yeah. I mean, I'm largely vegan, but because I might make a grilled cheese sandwich, because I will eat yogurt, and because I eat honey, I'm not a vegan. But if I don't have honey on a given day, I had a vegan day. If I didn't have either cheese or yogurt on that particular day, and I don't eat them every day, that day was vegan for me. But, you know, again, it's just vegan, the vegan meme and mindset, and I'm better than you. That's all that is. These are people who cannot validate themselves, so they need some fucking thing to virtue signal that they're better than you. It's, you know, look, there's so much confusion and mindfuck going on out there. Yeah, it's all programming. It's all programming. The average, until one awakens to the source within them, their higher self, the capital S self, and source, we're just flailing. And we're going to do really dumb shit in that flailing. And we're going to do real vain, silly, needy shit. And I certainly don't, for me, again, a carnivorous diet doesn't work for me. I don't knock carnivores because I don't have a problem with hunting. There's nothing, I can't find a single thing wrong with hunting. Basically, almost any animal a human would eat, the natural predators would be eating. So it's not like we're introducing ourselves into a system. We're not going after animals that die natural deaths. The animals that get eaten by other animals, that's general. I mean, they might drown, they might get killed in a rock or slide or a fire, but the general natural death for the animals that carnivores feed on, their natural death is to get eaten. That's a natural death for them. So I have zero problem with real hunting. I'm talking about hunting for food, or even for for fur. I don't like trapping. I think trapping is kind of nasty. Especially traps. The Native Americans kind of used loops. Yeah, it must be a real drag to be hang from one leg upside down, but it's not like having a steel biting into your leg. It's just different. And look at just what Shira said here. Most not only fed GMO corn, soy, and wheat. Corn, soy, and wheat are not natural foods for for the bovine species. Grass, what grows grasses. They might eat some of the wild wheat there, but they're being fed the wrong diet. And one of the reasons they're being fed the wrong diet because it makes them fatter. And they often, you get paid by the pound, but also the average person likes their meat somewhat marbled because it makes it a little bit tastier. And hunting is honest. There's there's a real honesty to hunting. So I don't have. That's I don't go. As a vegetarian, I don't go after carnivores. But I do have a problem with millions of people who demand their meat, but if they had to go out and kill it themselves, they'd probably become vegetarians. There are so many people, if they had to go and kill, actually end the life, then bleed it, gut it, skin it, all the things that go with putting a piece of meat on a plate, there would be a lot less carnivores. I would say that there'd be. There are plenty of hunters now. They're like, I've been hunting meat all my life. I got no problem with it, and I understand that. I'm talking about the millions of people who eat meat that actually would have a serious fucking problem with that. They wouldn't be able to do it. So that's where I'm talking about the honesty. Are you honest enough as a meat eater? Are you honest enough to go out and cut off a chicken's head? To go slit a cow's throat? And then, once the life has left it, hang it upside down to get the blood out of it, cut it open, render it into parts, get rid of the guts and all the rest of that stuff. So, I just feel that an honest relation to our food. I know that I wouldn't want. I've fished. I've cleaned more flounder than I care to remember. And I even remember, oh man, that fish is fighting. I no longer want to go fishing. Not only do I not want to eat, most of the fish I would catch, but I don't want to feel an animal fighting for its life on the edge of my hook. Now, a net is another thing. Because again, it's hard. To me, catching fish by net is harvesting. And yeah, when you pull them out of the water, they're going to die because they're out of their medium and they won't be able to get proper oxygen, and they'll dry up and all the rest of that shit, and they'll die. It's how we get animal food. Hello, Matt Finger. I mean, I think, you know, eating the raw meats and all this stuff, I mean, these are fads. Like, you know, fads run through people because the average person is not, unfortunately, is because they're not working on their connection to self and source, is not very creative. So they have to follow the fads that others create, because without following the fads, it'd be dull. There's no novelty coming from so many people. So when one person is novel, everybody piles onto the novelty to be novel with everybody else and be woke or whatever the fuck. So I think I won't be playing any music tonight. But again, mad thing is, I told people that on the Telestic transmission on Monday, I'm going to be really getting into the Thunderbird formation, which of course is the formation of the Kalika War Party, and getting into the nuances of that. I did it one time before, but I want to do more of an intensive, because a lot of the infighting in the alternative community is because there is not recognition that we're under attack. And I want to presence the Thunderbird formation in the KWP because it is at least a response. It is a coordination. It is a way for the various people to find common ground for a common assault, for a common attack against us all. And stop it all, stop all of the fucking arguing. It is just childish. It is childish. That's the behavior that we see. We have a common enemy, and it's attacking. It's been attacking for hundreds of years, but right now it's really on the upswing because they see their window of total domination closing. They see that window actually opening a little bit, and they are in panic mode. So while they're in panic mode, they're not going to be making the best decision. Very good time for a counterattack. And again, the attack has been on our perceptions and on our mind. There's some physical stuff, but the main thing is psychological. And the Thunderbird formation, especially the many bands that are there, are about the psychological, aesthetic, and environmental aspects that this attack is going under. So it isn't like one needs to pick up a wand, a sword, or a gun. This is a way of achieving some unity as a human animal being attacked by something that looks like us, but its behavior identifies it as not us. And the Kalika War Party, again, is based largely in sorcery. And so, they go, well, don't they have sorcerers too? Yeah, but they're few in number. Who cares how many? I mean, they don't have the numbers. Whatever it is, they don't have the numbers. Their biggest protection is us, the ones of those of us who they've hired away as police and military, especially the police. Police are us, turned against the common people by those because they got bought off and they don't see it, and they're fed the police are fed the propaganda of the controllers, that you're doing a good thing, you're keeping law and order and all the rest of this stuff. So they believe that. Because that's why this war is a psychological war and not an ordnance war. And the Thunderbird formation and the Kalika War Party really gets it clear that this is a psychological, environmental, environmental, like the aesthetics that we live in, the memes of the environment, what is normal of the environment. And Raksha spoke to, Moose spoke to this somewhat tonight. Again, he covered a lot of things, but there was a portion of it where he was definitely getting into this. So anyway, yeah, I think I'm done. Once, if I want to make music, I'll make it once I turn it off. Besides, I have to pull that amp out, and also, since it's a tube amp, I got to watch a video on, I'm pretty sure I remember, but I want to make sure I remember on how to take the electricity out of the capacitors, because capacitors store electricity, and there's enough stored voltage in capacitors in even a little 15-watt amp like mine to at least make for an unpleasant repair, and anywhere, and even to the, I guess depending on one's heart or whatever, potentially deadly. But that's really, really, I mean, it's a potential, but so I want to make sure that I watch that video and take the electricity out of my capacitors before I switch over to the new power transformer. I mean, that's my diagnosis. I hope my diagnosis is correct. I'll find out after the operation. But I have to make sure that I could do the operation safely. Well, telegraphing is important. Yes, I totally agree. I mean, stealth is excellent. And that's why the Thunderbird, formation is about identifying excuse me, which band or bands we associate with, especially around the Dakini energy, because there's a certain Dakinis are instructors for the various bands, and then forming quote unquote cells, and those cells will surreptitiously do their strategizing and not telegraph anything. Yeah, could bounce across the room, exactly. Yeah, and that's the other thing, again, for me, the only plan that I think that we should be sharing publicly is we need to find a way of finding those of us who understand we have a clear and present danger. That's the word that Max Egan uses, and it's very applicable and true. To confront. Is everybody going to be on board? No. It never worked. It's never like that. Hello, Groovy Bean. And, but again, it's just like what goes on, and, can be done privately. And because all the coordination, I mean, we could all talk and, say, oh, we have a great idea, well, we're going to have a get-together here. No, we have work to do. This is, if we get together, it would be because there's work that we can do together. Some people seem, oh, it'd be great if we could all just get together and meet. I'm not, it ain't party time right now. There is nothing. It isn't party time. There's nothing to celebrate. The world, we're under attack. There's nothing to celebrate about being under attack. Okay, yeah, I see. Obviously, whatever I had to say tonight. I mean, I'm happy. 15 people, good, nice little crowd. But I might be at the point of repeating myself. So that clear sign that since if the end is looking like the beginning, probably because we're at the end. So that'll be it for this Mystic Brew. Thank you all for partaking in the live chat, and greetings to all those who will be watching this live chat after the fact. A few more F-bombs in this one, but again, when it gets to, I don't mind adult language when it really wants to let somebody know that this isn't just like, there's some emotion going on here. And I find it a way to insert some emotionality while staying logical. In other words, rather than using emotional language and getting lost in the intellect by engaging in that level, staying at logic and feeling, allowing oneself to know the feelings associated with the thoughts. And in certain ways, the occasional adult word allows one to know that this isn't just a dissertation. And yeah. So yeah, this was definitely one of the ones. I mean, I have zero problem with adult words unless it's just, you know, like people like Danny McKinney on the Unfuckers. It gets a little bit. And Sethicus Boza, what was that, Black Earth Productions? Oh man, what a potty mouth! And you know, he tries to hold himself as an intellectual, and I'm not saying that he's, you know, doesn't have any brains. I'm not saying that at all. But the way he expresses himself, I feel like, you know, I feel like I'm in the Bronx, hanging out on the corner. So anyway, because somebody sent me some stuff, and you know, I think you really enjoy this, and after, you know, after the third or fourth nestless, oh, this is fucking bullshit, or just whatever. I mean, again, it wasn't placed. It was almost like habitual, and I don't enjoy habitual potty mouth. So, but I'm not that. When I'm using it, you know, I'm plugged in a little bit, and I want people to know when I'm plugged in. It's a signal. Okay, that's it for me. And I don't know, is CW still doing his music? Let me refresh my subscription channel. Oh yeah, oh yeah. And anybody who isn't already subscribed to Niche, she put up a new work of, you know, one of her video arts 42 minutes ago. And if you weren't live for Raksha or Moose or the elephant in the room, as is new, that's the other thing. Moose is now, if you want to be able to follow Moose at all, you will need to subscribe to the elephant in the room. That's where Moose is conducting, and that's where he's holding court these days. And he streamed 2 hours ago. So that's that. All right. Good night. Thank you. Take care of yourselves. And I will be doing a stream this Monday, and we will be about the KWP and the Thunderbird formation, and places for us to find agreement with, instead of this endless whatever argumentative kind of atmosphere that this kind of, you know, the whole woke phenomena type of thing. All right, so good night.